What's up, everyone? My name is James McCool, and today we're going to be doing a showdown season, but in audio-video form. As I said the last time that I did one of these, I'm trying to be a little bit better about utilizing multiple different kinds of mediums to do this kind of stuff rather than just writing. So we're going to go through the same showdown season process that we usually go through. We're going to take a look at captains and flex edges, aka what players are over or undervalued by the field based on what the contest sims say. We're also going to take a little bit of a look at the projections just overall so that we can, get an idea of who looks like good value, who looks like good ceilings, and some ownership around them. And then we're going to take a look at the portfolio manager and take a look at some dupe counts, as well as just some general process to figure out what lineups you should probably not play tonight, and maybe some lineups that you should play. Who knows? Let's get a little spicy. So let's go ahead and get started. If you go to the models, you go to NFL, and the range of outcomes is right here. Contest simulations is right here. And then the portfolio manager is right here. So we're going to start with the range of outcomes. And I have already pulled everything up. But when you load this up, you go to info filters, and you're just going to select showdown. And then it'll load everything up. And then if you want to see the advanced stuff that I'm going to look at, then you'll choose advanced here. But I'm just going to jump these open so we can get a look at things. So top overall projections are for JSN and Kyler Murray, both in the 19 to 20 range. Both do project for the highest ownership, but not by a significant amount. There's going to be plenty of people who are playing Sam Darnold, Trey Benson, Trey McBride. I'm sure that we'll get plenty of ownership as well on Marvin Harrison Jr. I do think that we probably get less ownership on Kenneth Walker because he's just really expensive in terms of being in a running back by committee. So splitting all that work with Zach Charbonnet, it just makes a lot more sense to go with Zach Charbonnet at 8,100. But the field will be doing that as well. So there's probably plenty of edge. Well, I guess we'll find out. I haven't seen what the edge numbers look like. But intuitively, I would think there's edge on Kenneth Walker, even at that price point. So overall projections make sense here. Let's take a look at 4X rate. So Michael Carter and Elijah Arroyo, whoever the fuck Arroyo is. And then JSN, AJ Barner, and Zach Charbonnet, Michael Wilson. Michael Wilson's going to have some ownership as well. Let's see, as far as captain ownership, we have Kyler Murray, JSN, Sam Darnold, Trey McBride, and Trey Benson as the guys who are going to actually get captain ownership. We'll see on Marvin Harrison Jr. I do think that he'll probably come in higher than 6%. I think that he could probably jump up to 10%. Just depends on what people are going to be doing with McBride and Darnold. I could see Darnold come down a bit and Marvin Harrison Jr. go up a bit. But that's neither here nor there. That's just kind of a little quick glance at things. Let's take a look at what the contest sims are saying here. So as we go down and we take a look at some things here. So overall for captains, the highest edge goes to Chad Ryland and then Zach Charbonnet, followed by JSN. The largest negative edge goes to Trey McBride by a long shot, and then Sam Darnold. Now, I've said this kind of stuff before, but this is pretty neutral, right? Positive edge of about 3% doesn't matter all that much. Positive edges of 2%, it's whatever. This is mostly neutral. The one that you should be wary of is Trey McBride. If Trey McBride and Sam Darnold both end up being above 10% owned in the captain spot, then that's just too much ownership. Marvin Harrison Jr., even at 5%, looks like he's overvalued just because models don't like him. But I think he probably jumps up into that. Hi, Kershaw. Please chill. I think he jumps up into that 8 to 10% range, I would guess. And that's going to bring down both of these guys. So maybe Darnold ends up more in line if he's more in the 9 to 10% range. That's much more neutral. The one that I would be wary of is Trey McBride. Now, even at negative 7%, that's not something that you can't make up elsewhere. So let's go ahead and take a look at what the flex exposures say. So the highest overall flex exposure edge goes to JSN at plus 17%, and then Kyler Murray at plus 12%. So those are both significant. And we have Chad Ryland, Michael Wilson, Elijah Arroyo, these guys with, leaning positive. The biggest negative is Trey McBride. Trey McBride looking very overvalued here. 40% projected ownership for Trey McBride. The exposure rate in winning sims is only 27%. So These ownerships I expect to stick. I don't think that that's going to be anything that comes down for Marvin Harrison Jr., for instance. So, again, just being wary of Trey McBride, who looks like he's quite a bit overowned. Again, you can make up this negative 13%. If you just play Trey McBride with Kyler Murray in the flex, that evens things out. But if you have one lineup, Trey McBride looks like the spot where you would likely want to be under the field or fading if you have one lineup. As I had mentioned with Kenneth Walker, he is going to be lower ownership, but it looks like that's fair. What did he look like for captain? I think he was probably pretty neutral for captain, I would guess. Yeah, pretty neutral. Okay, so if you're going to play Kenneth Walker, maybe you do it in the captain. In the flex, he does look like he's quite a bit overowned, but 9% is not anything you can't make up. So if you want to go with him instead of Zach Charbonnet, I think that's fine. As we move forward here to team exposures, so models have Seattle as the stack that you want to use 70% of the time and Arizona 30% of the time. That goes back to what I was saying and what the models are seeing with Marvin Harrison Jr. and Trey McBride. It just doesn't see Arizona as that valuable of a stack. So we want to be focusing on the Seattle side of things. Now, one thing that I had noted in the write-up for the Lions and for Baltimore was that it was completely feasible to use double running back builds, and I think that we have the same thing here. So even though we don't have a high exposure rate for Kenneth Walker, there's not going to be very many people that are playing both Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet, and it's completely feasible to do so, right? Like if they're splitting work, there's no issue in playing both of them, and the price is probably fair to play both of them. So I like that strategy again this week. All right, let's move on to the portfolio manager. Now, I have already loaded this with contest sims, or optimals and salaries and projections. So we're just going to be looking at dupe stuff. So I sorted this by dupes, and also another programming note here. I did end up entering the contest size for the largest contest. So the lineup that projects to have the most dupes is Kyler Murray, Zach Charbonnet, Michael Wilson, Sam Darnold, JSN, and the Seahawks defense. It's 50K salary. It's a lot of ownership. That's going to have a lot of dupes. But if I wanted to see really quick just, what players are likely going to be used in high duplicated lineups, and I'm going to say min-accept will dupe 75 because that looks like a pretty decent cutout here, and do this for the portfolio. So let's go down here and analyze the players. So Kyler Murray is used in the captain 86% of the time in the really, really highly expected dupe lineups. The other player is JSN, and that makes sense. I think that people are likely going to be trying to use both of these guys in the captain the most, as well as, maybe some Marvin Harrison Jr., maybe some Trey McBride. But I do think that those two are going to carry the heaviest dupes. Zach Charbonnet is used 80% of the time in these super high dupe lineups. Just speaking to fading him for Kenneth Walker, I think makes a lot of sense if you want to try to lower your dupes and have like a more unique build path. The flex core is likely going to be Zach Charbonnet with Trey McBride, Sam Darnold, and then people are going to make a choice between Ryland, Benson, and Michael Wilson. I do think that Benson is probably going to be the one that people pick more. So a lineup with Zach Charbonnet, Trey McBride, Sam Darnold, and Trey Benson. If you have those four guys in the flex, you're likely going to have much higher dupes. And then people are going to probably find some Michael Wilson and some Chad Ryland. And then after that, you just kind of get these guys that are flexed in there. The Cardinals defense does show up as well as the Seahawks defense. So you're not really gaining anything on that. And like I said, I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is probably going to be a little bit higher owned. But as I am looking at these, I think that it's probably relatively easy to find ways away from dupes, even playing lineups like this, right? Doing things. One thing is if you're going to play. Hey, buddy, you're making a lot of noise. I'm on a video. Killing me. If you're going to play Kyler Murray in the captain, I would say that Zach Charbonnet is probably someone that you would want to be lower on because he does show up in 80% of the higher dupe lineups with Kyler Murray as captain.
I need my Lego.
Then take your Legos. Sorry about that. I would also say if you have this core of Zach Charbonnet with Trey McBride, Sam Darnold, and Trey Benson, that you would want to avoid Kyler Murray and the captain. We're not getting much Kenneth Walker here at all, so I think that he makes for a really good addition if you're trying to mitigate your dupes. I also think that, like I said before, if you're playing Zach Charbonnet, adding Kenneth Walker to him, two lineups with him, makes for a really unique build path. And if you do that with the Seahawks defense, then the lineup makes a lot of sense. You have some added correlation in there and some added justification for why two running backs would make sense. So overall, I think that this is a pretty good showdown. I like the way that it comes together. I think that we have some good edge by having 70% Seattle stacks. I'm going to reset this portfolio and just kind of take a look at things while I'm here. This is not something that I usually do, but if what I wanted to do was find some lineups worth playing tonight, one of the things that I would do is say I want max, 50 dupes. One thing that I've been doing is saying minimum one dupe, so that I can kind of curtail my my volatility a little bit. And then I already have my minimal acceptable salary. I loaded this with lineups down to 47.5. So let's just go ahead and do that to start. So that'll cut down my dupes into a meaningful range. And we like Seattle stack. So this one, Zach Charbonnet captain with Benson, JSN, Kyler Murray, Marvin Harrison, and AJ Barner. That's a pretty sick lineup. Projects for 37 dupes. That's a little bit high, but in single entry, that's going to come down a bit. If I was going to be building things out based on the contest sims, for captains, we like Zach Charbonnet captain. We also like JSN. So let's just say in small field, I want to say that I want to make sure that I have JSN in the captain spot. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Gets me down to 242. And then let's see. So these are all positive edge lineups. The dupes are all relatively high. This one's a little lower. I think that pretty much any of these are probably going to be useful. If I wanted to build one for small field, I think that I would probably also say in the flex to remove Trey McBride. Let's see what that gives me. Gives me 156. And then let's go ahead and just trim these down. I'm going to trim them down on weighted ownership. All right, so there's 11 lineups that I think make a lot of sense. Right, you can play any one of these lineups in single entry, and it would make a lot of sense. JSN captain, you get Michael Wilson, Cooper Kupp, Trey Benson, Kyler Murray, Zay Jones. I think Zay Jones is in. I'm going to have to double check that. This one with JSN, Trey Benson, Torrey Horton, Kyler Murray, Michael Carter, and Marvin Harrison Jr. This lineup's pretty sick. I like that. There's a lot of good lineups here. So anyway, this has been a showdown season. I think overall the slate is pretty good. I like the concept of going with JSN captain. I like the concept of going with Zach Charbonnet captain. I want to be lower on Trey McBride. And if you go with a Kyler Murray and Kenneth Walker lineup, I think that it gives you a lot of unique upside, similar to what we had for the Lions and Ravens. If you want to use all these models for yourself and play around with them, especially the portfolio manager, and kind of get a look at the way to build out lineups like this, then you can find all this stuff over at Paydirt. You can find subscription options here. We have monthly, yearly, weekly, daily options from different price points. Best value in the industry. Thank you guys so much for the support and for everything that you guys allow me to do. I really appreciate it. And hopefully somebody can take down a flagship and put a Paydirt logo up top. So thanks so much. I appreciate you all, and I will talk to you next time.